Good morning. This is Shindo. Continuing with the back and forth with Russia and the United States and the EU. The war of wars over Syria is continuing. While the media is discussing what color tie Donald Trump's going to wear for the big debate tomorrow and what color pantsuit Clinton is going to wear for the debate tomorrow, I like to discuss real news. So if you want real news and you want it to be given actually fair and balanced, then subscribe to my channel. This is from the Financial Times. Western powers slam Russia's actions in Syria. Foreign minister condemned attacks and accused Moscow of violating faltering ceasefire. Foreign ministers from the U.S., the U.K., France, Italy, and Germany, along with the EU's foreign policy chief, have accused Russia of violating an already faltering ceasefire in Syria. Russia's support for attacks carried out by the regime of President Bashar al-Assad, quote, blatantly contradicts Russia's claim that it supports a diplomatic resolution, unquote, the U.S. and EU ministers said in a joint statement on Sunday. The new offensive, which activists say killed more than 80 people on Friday, comes after a string of meetings on the crisis between world powers in New York that have failed to salvage a U.S.-Russian brokered deal. The UN said on Saturday that the fighting had cut running water from the entire city of 2 million people. Airstrikes destroyed water pumps that provide water to the opposition areas, and in response, rebels appear to have cut water pumps in their territory that feed regime-held districts. The foreign minister said, quote, the burden is on Russia to prove it's willing and able to take extraordinary steps to salvage diplomatic efforts, unquote. Syrian forces backed by Russian air cover advanced on the outskirts of Syria's northern city of Aleppo on Saturday in an onslaught slammed as, quote, outrageous by U.S. and the EU. Warplanes battered the rebel-held districts of eastern Aleppo with near-constant shelling for a third day in a row as President Bashar al-Assad aims to capture the opposition's last major urban stronghold using the fierce bombardment seen in the country's 5-year civil war. But the latest offensive appears to signal that Moscow, which intervened militarily on Mr. Assad's behalf last year, is not interested in reviving the deal. Quote, the Russians seem to have decided to help the regime take Aleppo amid this international silence, unquote, said a rebel commander from Aleppo. Mr. Assad's forces have captured the Handaret camp in the north of the city, a move that will help them tighten their siege on eastern Aleppo. Residents say the explosions have been so powerful in recent days that they shake the ground beneath their feet. Video uploaded by activists on Friday shows rescuers digging people out of the wreckage with their bare hands, an entire street blown to pieces by the bombardment. Medical staff inside the city have pleaded for help, sending pictures of hospitals so packed with victims of shelling that some patients were laid out in bloodied hallways. Mohammed Abu Rajab, a radiologist in the city, said the hospital's operating rooms were so packed he was treating wounded children on hospital floors. Quote, I haven't seen anything like this in the past 5 years, unquote, he said. We have just one message to the world today. We are pleading for them to help us stop these warplanes. Leave us under siege. We will deal with the thirst and hunger, but please stop these bombs, unquote. the regime's offensive could be a watershed moment for the war if Russia and Iran, Mr. Assad's backers, pump in support to help him take Aleppo, which is split between rebels and regime forces, as the opposition's last urban stronghold. Aleppo would be an important strategic and political win for the regime. Quote, "It is critical for children's survival that all parties to the conflict stop attacks on water infrastructure," unquote, said UNICEF spokeswoman Hannah Singer. On Saturday morning, medics in eastern Aleppo said a Syrian Arab Red Crescent warehouse was completely destroyed, a major blow to medics who are running short on supplies. The strike comes less than a week since after warplanes hit an aid convoy at Red Crescent Center west of Aleppo City and killed 200 people. Rescue workers known as the White Helmets say 4 of the centers have been hit and 40 buildings were destroyed on Friday. Medics and rescue workers say they have been unable to reach many bomb sites because the bombardment has damaged so many roads and vehicles. Residents in one district sent pleas for help on Saturday morning. Quote, we have been shelled since 3 a.m. and have people alive trapped under the rubble, and there is water running all over the ground," unquote, one man said in a voice message sent to medics and journalists. Quote, "People are going to die from drowning without help," unquote. Despite advances in Handayrat, Mr. Assad's forces will probably struggle to take the city itself. Rebels have for years dug fortifications and underground tunnels, but if the offensive continues with the same ferocity, it threatens to become one of the most horrific battles in a war that has taken more than 300,000 lives. Quote, "The only way to take eastern Aleppo is by such monstrous atrocity that it would resonate for generations," unquote, a Western diplomat said. Quote, "It would be the stuff of history," unquote. Activists in the city posted photographs of burnt and bloody children covered in debris from blast. Video shows residents using sheets and stretchers to pull out the dead and wounded, as well as piles of burnt, mangled limbs. John Kerry, U.S. Secretary of State, said that the only way to revive the ceasefire plan was for all military aircraft to be barred from flying missions over contested areas of the country. But some Western officials felt that there were few options left for negotiating with Moscow. Last week, Washington implemented a ceasefire and humanitarian aid deal with Moscow that was supposed to lay the groundwork for U.S.-Russian joint military cooperation against jihadi forces that have taken root amid Syrian chaos. But it is foundered after the first 7 days, undermined by a strike that killed more than 60 regime soldiers. U.S.-led international coalition forces who were meant to be targeted, ISIS, said the strike was an accident, but both Moscow and Mr. Assad say they believe it was intentional. Then airstrikes targeted humanitarian convoy that was taking aid to opposition areas in northern Syria, killing more than 20 civilians and aid workers. Washington and the rebels pointed the finger at Russia, calling it a, quote, unacceptable atrocity. Moscow denied any involvement and said opposition fighters were responsible. Meanwhile, the fighting in Aleppo rages on, and besieged residents face increasingly dire conditions. Quote, "People are on the move, running from street to street, house to house," said Aldo Kuhar, an Aleppo council member. Quote, "They are looking for somewhere safe, but there is no escape," unquote. Well, I'll tell you what, as they say, the history is written by the victor. And in this case, it doesn't look like the victor in Syria is going to be the United States of America. And I still firmly believe that there's going to be a peace that's going to be established in the region, for the entire region, not just Syria, but for the entire region. There is going to be a man of peace, and he is going to manifest himself on the world scene within weeks and months. I believe he already has manifested himself, and I believe that this man is going to bring peace to the Middle East. And because he's able to do this, the rest of the world is going to uplift him as a new Messiah figure. This, folks, is dangerous times in which we are living. Now, I'm telling you this, and what's going to happen is you're going to see these things going on. You're going to see that America as a country is going to virtually collapse, and it's going to be built back up. A new world order is going to be established. And when these things happen, I guarantee you that you're going to see them and say, wow, this is great. This is fantastic. This is wonderful. Look at the plenty that we have now. Wow, this man who's done all these things, he's just something else. He's our hero, our Messiah. You, the people, the few of you who actually listen to my videos, you're going to say that yourself. I guarantee you that he is not what he seems to be, and you will regret very much in the future that you didn't listen to me now. But that is going to be your cross to bear, not mine. This is the real news, folks. This is what's really going on. This is what's significant. This is what's significant. This ritual called a debate tomorrow night, it's not going to make a hell of a lot of difference. It's going to seem to. People are going to be praising both sides of this debate, and it's going to seem significant. But these are all just dog and pony shows. What's going on in the real world is the kind of things that I cover here on my channel. So, subscribe, comment like an adult, click like. I need you to click like, because if you don't, these videos will be buried by all the thumbs down that I'm sure to get. This is Shindo. Have a good Sunday.